Hi everybody, welcome to Nierychlo Online. So it's Saturday today, yesterday was Friday obviously, reason I highlight that. The Olympic opening ceremonies happened yesterday, everything kicked off. Huge ceremonies yesterday, we watched them, well actually I spent about half the day yesterday downtown Vancouver wandering around just seeing the hustle and bustle. The streets were loaded with people, jam-packed. There was entertainment happening everywhere, there was shows and setups and just showcasing everything. News groups were down there. It was very busy downtown. It was really interesting to see everything happening, all the decorations, everything set up for the Olympics. All awaiting the opening ceremonies, which happened last night at BC Place. I'm sure many of you watched it on TV last night and saw the very impressive opening ceremonies they did. It always blows me away when I see the inside of BC Place and how huge a building it is. And they really transformed it. They did an amazing job of all the hydraulics and the way they made it look like snow everywhere, and just a lot of the entertainment they did with it. A lot of big names performed there. Some of the bigger names carrying the torch around, Wayne Gretzky, things like that. Very interesting show. For those of you who caught it too, they had a little glitch at the end of the ceremonies when they were lighting the cauldron. Made everybody a little uncomfortable what's going to happen, but it all seemed to work out. So today's the kickoff, all the events are going on. I caught a little bit of some of the luge on TV last night and some of the speed skating this morning. Excuse me, I saw the opening ceremonies last night, the luge this morning, some of the speed skating this morning. It's all very interesting, it's all kind of happening. It's really neat that it's just kind of happening in my back door in Vancouver there. So anyway, that's enough about the Olympics. Today I'm going to be talking to you about South African wines. Now, South Africa is an area of the world that is less popular for wine, but as of, I'll say, the early to mid-90s, South Africa has really started to be discovered as a more internationally recognized producer of wine. They've been making wine for just over 300 years, pretty much since the Dutch East India Trading Company set up a post right in South Africa in the area of Cape Town, right on the southern tip. And that southern tip there has proven, well, let's see, I think they settled in about 1652. I think their first wines were produced in about 1659, and he was pretty excited about it. They were just making wine out of there. It's a really interesting little microclimate in the area around Cape Town. They've got the ocean hitting the side of the continent right there, as well right behind, or a little bit northern to them. They've got a vast mountainous range that kind of blocks them off from the more desert, arid part of South Africa, which keeps a really interesting microclimate on the southern tip there. They get a really interesting soil, they get the winds and the cooler temperatures coming in across from the ocean, they get the heat and everything from the African continent, the mountains causing really interesting wind cycles, things like that. Everything that plays into making an interesting wine. A lot of people have said that the growing climate in South Africa is very Mediterranean, which makes a lot of sense. Let's see, what else can I tell you about South Africa? Very Mediterranean. The one thing I really enjoy about South Africa is their wines always come across as extremely interesting. Well, you'll see a couple examples today, but one clear example, say their Cab Sauv. You pretty much always know what a Cab Sauv from California is going to taste like, or even one from the Okanagan. They have familiar flavor profiles to them. You go to South Africa and it's completely different. You're thrown right off. Same with their Shirazes, things like that. And those are two wines that are very popular in South Africa, as Cab and Shiraz, which is why I brought a Cab and Shiraz from South Africa today. And South Africa as well is a good value place as well, because it's still being discovered and they're still growing in their winemaking efforts, even though they've been doing it for a long time. Now I think is the time where it's really starting to come about. It's a good value play. You can find a lot of decent wines from there, made for less money, because they're still trying to be discovered. I wrote a little list here, just quick snippet. South Africa is a lot more known for their whites. They do really well with their whites, even their plantings. There's more whites. Just kind of a list in order, top to bottom, of what they're growing the most of. We'll just say we'll start with the most down to the least. Chenin Blanc is very well known in South Africa. They do a lot of it there. Cabernet Sauvignon, Colombard, Shiraz, Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Merlot. And the last one, which is almost the least planted, and it's a blend of Pinot Noir and Cinsault, is called Pinotage. Now Pinotage what can I tell you? Pinotage is going to be a whole other episode in itself, and I'll let you see that down the road. But Pinotage is an extremely interesting grape, and South Africa is known for it because of, we'll just call it for now, the interesting aromas and flavor characteristics that it gives off. It's a bit of a strange wine, very interesting one to try out. If you're in the liquor store and you see a Pinotage, go ahead and try it out and see what you think. Some people say Pinotage goes really well with barbecue, things like that, but again, we'll leave that for another episode. I'd love to dive into it, but too much for this episode. Anyway, I've got 2 wines today from... Oh, here's another snippet about South Africa. They don't call them wineries in South Africa, they call them wine farms. Just another little interesting note about South Africa. So, from the producer Excelsior, and these were imported by Style Wines. I know a couple of guys who work for Style Wines. It's a bigger importer / marketing agency here in BC. Good friend Frank and Carmen spoke to them the other day, so they handed these wines off for me to showcase for you. It's a little plug for Style Wines there, and I'm sure a lot of the local big liquor stores know who I'm talking about. So anyway, I'm going to start off. They're both $15 wines, not a bad price. We'll see how they taste. We've got the 2007 Excelsior Shiraz from South Africa. I'm going to go ahead and get right into them and see how it goes. So right away, first thing, actually, it's got that dark ruby color, which is typical for Shiraz. But usually Shiraz is more black and solid in color. This is almost see-through. I can see my fingers through the glass. So it's a little bit lighter in color, which is interesting. Okay, so on the nose, Shiraz. This is not your Australian Shiraz. It's not blackberry jam and vanilla, things like that. This is not your Australian Shiraz. On nose, this is very plummy. A lot of like black, deep plum comes through on this. Yeah, elegant, deep plums. And it's very meaty. I get a lot of like ground beef. But okay, let's say you're making tacos for an evening. And I don't mean taco seasoning or anything like that, but when you start to make tacos, you take your ground beef and you brown it in the frying pan all by itself. And when you're frying it, the aroma it gives off, that's what this is giving off. It's very ground beef meaty. As well, I get a hint of like vegetal on it as well. Again, South Africa has very interesting flavor profiles. Yeah, it's almost like a cabbage roll. So if you took a cabbage roll, threw some freshly fried ground beef in it, and some plums beside it, that's more or less what you'd be smelling here. With a hint of pepper, something like that. A hint of pepper, maybe vegetal like bell pepper. And on the palate, yeah, I would say for Shiraz, it's probably about a medium-bodied Shiraz. It's not a huge, deep, heavy wine, medium-bodied. Fairly elegant, actually. It's fairly soft in my mouth, soft tannins. I think they're both ready to drink now. Or definitely the Shiraz is ready to drink now. Soft tannins. Again, a lot of that plum. I'd venture to say a little bit of black cherry or something as well, but mostly plum on here. Black plum. Almost like you baked a bit of black plum. And a little bit of pepper on the finish as well on the palate. I think you get a bit of that bell pepper as well. The nose I really enjoy. It's quite interesting, quite a meaty nose. I'd almost venture to say like stewed plums, something like that. That's an interesting wine. For $15, yeah, if you want to venture out, taste these. I'd recommend them. There's nothing foul about them, nothing off about them. The Shiraz, the 07 Shiraz, I would give this, let's say, I'll call it, yeah, it's a decent wine. A decent wine. Let's go with 87.5 points. Good soft tannins. It's a little bit soft to me. Could have a little bit more structure. Right? Like a little bit more acidity or something like that. Because my mouth feels a little bit goopy slightly after drinking it, but nothing bad. Just it could have a little bit more crispness. We'll put it that way. I don't mind it. All right. On to the Cab Sav. And like I said, these are two wines that are well known in South Africa. Cab Sav and Shiraz, kind of their other big plays they've been doing a lot with. My glass of rinse there. Okay, so the 07 Cab Sav from Excelsior. Very similar color in the Cab Sav as the Shiraz. A bit darker. Yeah, definitely a bit darker, a bit more purple to it, or dark ruby. Whew, okay, on the nose on this one. This is definitely not your typical Cab Sav nose. Wow. What am I getting on there? There's a lot of like, this is earth. Like this is earthy. Earthy and a lot of, oh, I want to say like tobacco leaf, something like that. Tobacco leaf and just dirt. Tobacco leaf, dirt. A hint of leather and pepper. There's something else in there too. It's meaty. It's definitely meaty, but not like ground beef. It's more, it's probably more gamey. Very interesting nose. It reminds me of something. I can't place it right now, but if I do, I'll let you know. Yeah, interesting nose. Very earthy. Again, the plums on this too. The plums. It's not the big black cherries, things like that. Definitely plums. This one I would say has a bit of black currant or something like that. A bit of that kind of, that tart play on the nose too. Okay. On the palate, I gotta give that one a second sip there. Again, not your typical cab on the palate. If you're used to California cabs, you may not like this one. It's a bit thin. It's definitely a bit thin. It's got some length to it. The pepperiness kind of carries on the length. It's just a hint of pepper. A bit thin. You get definitely the plum on the palate. The plum, and this one's actually drinking a little bit green, like a little bit young. Like it could lie down longer, but I don't know if it has a structure for it. A decent wine. Plum, yeah, you get some of the black currant on there. The nose, though, that's the thing with the nose, it's very aromatic. It's just bursting out of the glass, which disappoints me a little bit on the palate. And the palate's more soft, kind of round fruits like a plum. Get a little bit of that gaminess, a hint of pepper. Not a lot of tannic backbone. These would be for drinking now. This one's slightly green. I definitely like the Shiraz better than the Cab Sav. Although the nose in the Cab Sav I find very interesting. And there's still something I can't quite place, but it's very gamey. Tobacco leaf, things like that. These are both very earth driven. This is like dirt and earth and things like that. I'm gonna rate this one, the 07 Cab Sav. I'll just say it's okay. The Shiraz is definitely a decent to good wine. This one's okay. Let's go with, I don't know, 86 points on this one. I'll probably say around there, 86 and a half points. But for 15 bucks, you're still going to get an interesting view of what South Africa has to offer, especially in the Shiraz. I just think the Shiraz is definitely a better value. Another thing you get on the palate of this one is a little bit of a chalkiness. It's a bit chalky and green, like it's drinking kind of young. It's almost like they harvested the grapes slightly too early, or maybe just that year was a bit cooler or something like that. Anyway, that's Excelsior from South Africa, both 2007 vintages, both $15 wines. Go out, give South Africa a chance. They make some really interesting wines, and like I mentioned before, if you can find a Pinotage before I do a Pinotage episode, I think you'll find it very interesting. Go ahead, try them out. South Africa makes very different tasting wines. I'm a big fan of South Africa, especially the value coming out of there. Their Chenin Blancs. Find a good Chenin Blanc from South Africa and you'll probably be hooked. yeah, that's about all I can tell you about South Africa. Thanks for watching today. Comment below. Tell me if you've tried any South African wines, what you've thought of them, what kind of flavor profiles you came up with. Yeah, the Olympics are playing. Enjoy them. I sure am. I'm watching them on my TV. Enjoying the hustle and bustle, everything that's going on around here. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.